Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're looking at zero clearance inserts on the bandsaw. Now, a zero clearance insert on the bandsaw serves the same purpose as what a zero clearance on a table saw does. It prevents smaller pieces from falling down into the saw. It helps to cut back on some of the tear out at the back of the piece from the blade pushing through the bottom end of your stock. And as well, it just gives cleaner cuts in general. The problem is that they're inherently difficult to install because there's no real way to get the slot cut properly for the blade you're using. And that's what we're going to tackle today. I'm going to show you guys how to install one of these by building a very simple jig that starts off over at the bench with just a little bit of scrap. Well, when I say scrap, I wasn't kidding around. This is just an old piece of 1/2 inch thick plywood, and I have cut it to be 1.5 inches wide, and it's about 9.5 inches long. This other piece here, this is some kind of particle board. I really don't know what it is. I got it out of an old piece of furniture and I just use it for templates and that sort of thing. But I've cut it to be about 2.5 inches wide, I believe it is. I think it's 19 long, 14 long. I don't even remember, 14 long. Let's double check this. Yeah, 2.5 by 14. And it's about 3/8 of an inch thick, but it's just junk. It's really nothing special. But these two pieces together are going to form a jig that we need that is going to help us to install our zero clearance. So the very first thing that we want to do, I've made sure that I've squared up all of our sides and that our sides of both of our boards are parallel. I trued those up on the table saw. And what we want to do at this point is, using a trusted square, we're going to line it up and roughly in the middle, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we're going to take our longer 14-inch piece and we are going to glue this. And you can nail it, you can screw it, you can attach it however you want, but we're going to glue it in place so that it is square to our piece of plywood here. Essentially, we have made ourselves a T-square, and this is what you want to do. So get it glued up, screw it up, nailed up, however you want to do it, and then let that completely dry. Well, the glue is dried on my T-square jig here. I kind of went the extra mile, maybe a bit of overkill, but I put 3 number 8 by 3/4 inch screws in there to help as well. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to turn our saw on. I have a 3/16 inch blade installed here in the saw. We're going to turn it on and we're going to place this plywood section of our T-square against the edge and slowly run it into the blade just until it gives us a mark here at the end of our board. And with that mark placed right there, we can now head back over to the bench. Well, now using a square and lining it up against the mark that our blade made on the arm of our T-square that we made, we're going to square off a line just like that across our main piece here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mark the center, and from there I have a new uncut insert. These are from Rikon. They're for my saw, and what I'm going to do is we're going to measure this, and then right in the center here on this line, we're going to use our compass and draw a circle that is going to equal the diameter of what our insert is. Just like that. Now guys, this is nothing more than a guide as to how to or where to attach our zero clearance insert onto our board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little piece of double-sided tape, and we're going to attach our zero clearance insert right here onto our T-square jig. All right, so here's what you want to do. We've got our zero clearance insert attached with double-sided tape in the center of that circle that we've drawn. I've drawn a line on here in the center just to help me align it. It's not really necessary because even if it's askew or twisted on here, it really doesn't matter because the jig is going to align it in the middle. So with our 3/16 of an inch blade here, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn the saw on, we're going to run our jig through, and we're going to cut into our insert just beyond our halfway point. So this is roughly our halfway point, and I do mean roughly. So I'm going to cut it probably at 1/2 an inch beyond our halfway point. Now from here we can hook out our stock plate. There we go. We're going to clean around this recess here. We're going to clean around that with a brush, and then we're going to install our new zero clearance. So we'll just remove our zero clearance insert here off of our jig. There is a little bit of fraying there at the beginning, no big deal. And we're going to bring it from the back of our blade through our slot, just like this, and place it into our opening. Now try to align your slot as best you can with the slot that is on your table here. And once you get it aligned, we're just going to tap this into place. Just like that. And then we'll just start up the saw to let the blade, because with these, they kind of compress in place. So you can see here that it actually shaved a little bit off of those inserts. It is a tight fit in there. We need to do some adjustments for sure on the adjustment Allen keys, but we're just going to start up the blade just to open up the kerf where the blade is. And there we go. Perfectly flush, perfectly aligned, zero clearance insert, cut perfectly. It doesn't get much better than that, guys. So there you go. That's how you can go about cutting a zero clearance insert and getting the best results for it that you can. And there you have it. Installing a zero clearance insert in your bandsaw. Guys, there are plenty of people out there that could really benefit from a zero clearance insert in their bandsaws. Just as many as what could benefit from them in their table saws. The difference is there's really not a lot of information out there on how to install them in a bandsaw. It's not as simple as raising your blade up into the insert. With a table saw, you place the blank insert into the slot. It's held in place, sometimes with clamp down boards or what have you, and you raise your blade up into it, creating the kerf, creating, you know, that area of zero clearance. It's just the kerf of the blade. That's all that it allows. But with a bandsaw, the blade is continuous. There is no way to raise it up or to lower it down or to bring it in or bring it out. There's no way to really align it. So there's really not that much information out there as to how you actually go about doing it. Now, truth be told, these inserts for the Rikon are a little tighter than what I would like them to be. They could really use to be, as much as they are zero clearance rather, they could use to be just a little bit smaller, because once they get tapped into that recess in the table saw, or in the bandsaw rather, it really clamps down on that kerf that you just cut and crushes it in on the blade. And when I turned on the saw to, finish it off, to open it up just that little bit, I actually tripped the breaker in the shop. So that's kind of a design flaw on the Rikon end of things. That has nothing to do with the method of how to actually cut these things. So now with that being said, you may want to cut them a little thicker than what the blade is that you're using, because one that is cut for this 3/16 inch blade is not necessarily going to work for something like, say, a thin kerf resaw blade. The kerf on the two blades is completely different. So don't be surprised if you actually need to adjust and cut things a little different, or cut different ones for different size blades. My suggestion for that would be pick the thickest kerf blade that you have and cut your zero clearance insert. Then test it with the smallest blade that you have. And if that kerf is still small enough to give you the zero insert or the zero clearance insert properties that you want with your smallest blade, then Bob's your uncle and it's no big deal. You can just carry on. But if that kerf of your largest blade is too wide and doesn't really work with your thinnest, you may want to use different size blades for different inserts, and different inserts for different size blades. So you may need to cut a couple of these, but not to worry, because that T-square jig that we made today is reusable over and over and over again. So no matter how many inserts you have to cut, you could always just tuck that T-square away, have it out at a moment's notice, and cut yourself a new zero clearance insert. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found the information on today's show helpful. This is not by any means the only method of cutting a zero clearance slot in a zero clearance insert for a bandsaw, but it's one that I have found works extremely well, and I always get really good results with it. So if you're so inclined and you want to, give it a try and see what you think. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. You click the bell and then you're not going to miss the notifications of future episodes of the program. Guys, I want to thank you again for tuning in this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's cleared up some of the confusion on how it is that you can go about cutting these slots. I hope you're going to try it for yourself at home with your bandsaw. And more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.